Here's exactly what to expect for the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max. Welcome everybody to AppleInsider. It is Andrew here, and Apple has made their September 7th event official, where we will see new iPhones, new Apple Watches, and maybe some more cool stuff. In this video ahead of that event, I'm going to round up every rumor that we have so far on the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max. There are quite a few changes, so let's go ahead and dive into all of the details. I'm going to break this video into multiple sections, including pricing and availability, but let's start with the display on the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max. The display is going to come in the same sizes that we have with the iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max. We're going to have a 6.1-inch smaller size and a 6.7-inch larger size, so an iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max. They're also going to be the same Super Retina XDR display with support for ProMotion. ProMotion allows it to adjust the refresh rate all the way up to 120 Hz, making it very fast and fluid when you're playing a game or scrolling through Safari. But at the same time, the new version on the iPhone 14 Pro line will be able to drop all the way down to 1 Hz. What that means is we're finally going to get that always-on display. By adjusting the refresh rate down to only 1 time a second, Apple can display things like widgets, the battery, or a dimmed version of the wallpaper on your lock screen. This is a huge feature that I've wanted for quite some time and have been jealous of every time I'm testing Android handsets. It's really cool that it sounds like we're finally going to get this always-on display with the iPhone 14 Pro series. The other change with the iPhone 14 Pro displays is that change from a notch to that pill and dot design. Apple's now going to use these cut-out pieces instead of the notch. This will allow more vertical real estate, but it'll depend on Apple and third-party developers if and how they take advantage of that slightly additional space. I personally think this looks good, and Apple will be sticking with the notch for the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Max. Let's talk about the cameras. The iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max will have an even larger camera bump than ever. Let's take a look at some of these dummy units that we have here. I really like this all-metal design that I recently got, and I can compare it to my iPhone 13 Pro. Here they are, side by side, and you can see that larger camera bump on that new iPhone. It's definitely bigger on the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max. It's a big increase, not just in the overall size of the bump, but the thickness as well. It is even thicker than the iPhone 13 Pro. The iPhone 13 Pro's bump was not small, and the iPhone 14 Pro bump is so much more notable. It's going to be larger for a couple different reasons. For example, the iPhone 14 Pro's wide-angle lens is going to go all the way up to 48 megapixels instead of just 12. That's basically quadrupling the resolution on that camera. Now, you're not likely going to get 48 megapixel photos from this sensor though. Apple's likely to use pixel binning, which other camera manufacturers are already using. Basically, it uses multiple sensors to combine them into one super pixel, which is great for low-light photography because each of them can capture different amounts of data and light and bring it all together for a great image, no matter the lighting that you're taking it in. So we're likely to still see 12 megapixel photos coming off of the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max, but they'll be utilizing a larger 48 megapixel sensor. That sensor could also aid with telephoto photography. So Apple may or may not increase the actual optical lens on the telephoto, going from a 3 maybe to a 5 and relying on shorter range to use that 48 megapixel photo or camera lens instead. Finally, the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max will likely use a 7-element lens, which is the same as the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Max, though Apple could include better optics and clarity on the Pro versions. What about connectivity? The first thing that we're likely to see this year is finally support for Wi-Fi 6E. I think this is long overdue, and it makes sense we're going to get it in the entire iPhone 14 lineup. The iPhone 14 could also support Bluetooth 5.2. There are some rumors that new AirPods Pro set to debut at the event may include support for Bluetooth 5.2 low energy. This would be an awesome new addition, and it seems like it could be possible on the iPhone 14 lineup. Then we have MagSafe. MagSafe is Apple's connectivity standard for doing a bunch of stuff. Using it on a charger here, works in multiple orientations. You can mount your phone, and it's all just magnetic. It all just works. It's really easy to do. And the iPhone 14 line will, of course, support MagSafe. There have been rumors. A few companies have told me that there's been some changes to MagSafe spec. We'll see what actually happens. I don't think we're going to get data yet in MagSafe, but still, Apple is committed to MagSafe and showing it up in future iPhones. Of course, for the port, Apple's sticking with Lightning. The port will not be going away just yet, and we're not switching to USB-C just yet. We're going to have Lightning for at least 1 more year. Finally, what's powering the iPhone 14 Pro? Unlike the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Max that will still use the A16 Bionic chip, the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max will be relying on Apple's new A16 Bionic chip. The new version of the chip will be faster and have many improvements, including with the ISP for the camera, than that last generation chip. It's different that Apple is going to be including the older year-old chip in the iPhone 14 series, and then the Pros get the fancy new one, but just more of a reason to upgrade to the Pro handsets versus the entry-level models. That brings us all to pricing and availability. The iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max start off at $999 and $1099 in the US respectively for 128 gigs of storage. The iPhone 14 Pro is likely to increase in price. We could see those numbers jumping up each one notch. So instead of $999 for an iPhone 14 Pro, the iPhone 14 Pro may start off at $1099. And an iPhone 14 Pro Max could again start another $100 more at maybe $1199, or maybe only a $50 price increase. But due to that new price increase, the inflation that is affecting everything, Apple may include additional flash storage to help compensate users for having to pay more for the base models of the Pro handsets. So even if they cost a little bit more, Apple could double that storage. So instead of starting at 128 gigs, all the base units could start with 256. That's what I think is most likely to happen. So when can you get your hands on the iPhone 14 Pro? Apple's Fall iPhone Event Spectacular is scheduled for September 7th. That is when the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max will be announced. Then they'll be available to pre-order likely that Friday, which would be September 9th, if history holds true. Then they'd be shipping to customers, and the first ones would be delivered starting on September 16th, just a week after pre-orders went live. Of course, if things are popular as they have been in the past, and as rumors suggest based on demand, we could see those shipping estimates slipping very fast. So as usual, if you're not sure what to do, commit to a phone and see if you can find one quicker down the line, because they may start slipping into the weeks and months after launch. So don't get caught without an iPhone if you wanted to have one for launch day. Let me know what you guys think. What are you most excited to see on an iPhone 14 Pro? Are you excited for the new pill cutout? Do you like the always on display feature? Or are you excited for those new cameras? Let me know all of that down below in the comments or on Twitter at Andrew_OSU. Otherwise, stay tuned. So many more videos coming your way.